Well, we met, as lots of people used to do, in country people in those days, we met at a dance, didn't we?
Yes.
And it was to do with the Young Conservatives. And I belonged to Chittlehampton Young Conservatives, and although Arthur was a little bit overage for Young Conservatives by then, weren't you? But he still was, sort of part chumly Young Conservatives.
Well, I was never
Never in them.
I was never in them, but I mean, you could go to any dance, really local dances. You could go to whether the young farmers or the conservatives, they was glad to get you money.
So I presume, because we met at a Young Conservative dance, that you were young, but obviously not.
Well, I used to meet you first of all, I think, when you was working in Northcote, wasn't it? I used to go to Barnesville Market. We used to have to drive. Father never drove a car, and we used to have to drive in to Market. It was me and my younger brother that was home at the time. And one of us used to take it turns to go to Market with him. And we used to go to Northcote and get the Farmers Weekly every week. And that's where I saw Wendy first. Then we met to dance, didn't we?
Well, I don't remember that bit, so... Oh, gosh.
I remember that. I knew you were going to remember that.
You must have seen me before I realised you'd seen me.
Well, you used to buy them because you used to serve in Northcote, didn't it?
I know you used to buy a lot of envelopes.
When I went to dances, I knew where you thought you was working in Northcote.
Gosh, the first time I've...
Tell me about these dances. What sort of music? What sort of...
Well, all sorts of music.
Yeah.
Roy and his...
normal dance music. And there was the Ferguson Trio, of course. You must have heard of the Ferguson Trio.
But I remember them as the Bill Hammett.
Yeah.
It is the Ferguson Trio.
Yeah.
His
wife used to play the drums.
Dancing, and then eventually we started jigging up. You weren't very good at jigging about, were you? And then the first one of the real modern bands I remember was called the Graham and his Green Echoes.
Oh, yeah.
And they came to Chittlehampton Village Hall, and they said, gosh, you could hear them right out at whatever cross it is, right across the fields and across the valley, and they could still be heard.
They was playing in Chumley once, and we could hear them here.
That was, not, well, it was exciting at the time, and I liked the drummer. Drummers always make such funny faces, don't they? But yeah, because my favourite Beatle was Ringo, so there's something about drummers.
Obviously. And you were saying Roy and his something, was it?
Well, the Roy and his Green Echoes, was it?
No, there was Roy and Blue Stars.
Blue Stars,
Roy,
yeah. Blue Stars.
Yeah, they were both encouraged by their fathers, I think, weren't they? And I think their fathers used to chauffeur them around.
They thought they were better than they were, because they thought they went to Germany and play once, and that's about the last you heard of them. They didn't do well, and that was the end of it.
So they thought they were going to be the new Beatles, didn't
Yeah.
they? Mm-hmm. Or perhaps the Beatles. That would have been before the Beatles, wouldn't it, actually?
Oh, gosh, long time before the Beatles.
Well, another thing I just thought about the other day was, I went to Witheridge dance, and I offered to take you home, and you accepted. That was after we'd been dancing time or two together.
I discussed it with my friends. I said, well, what do you think? Do you think it'd be all right if I let him take me home? And oh yes, one of them said, oh yes, I think he's sweet. So I thought, if she thought he was sweet, he must be all right. and so that was how everything began.
I love that you didn't know that he was checking you out in Northcote.
No, that's the first time I've heard of that.
But you also didn't realise he wasn't a young conservative.
Well, yes, yeah,
all of these
absolutely.
Things.
As I said, when I went to dances, I danced with her quite a few times before. I asked her that night to take her. I said I would take her home. But
that's how life was in those days. Yeah.
While you're talking about meeting Wendy, we were married 55 years ago.
New Year's Eve.
The other day, 31st of December.
So how did you propose?
I don't even remember him proposing, actually. He must have, because here we are.
Can you remember, Arthur?
No.
We met in October, and we were engaged at at Easter time, and married on the next New Year's Eve. So all, it was all. Well, we didn't have a long engagement then, put it that way. But
And that was the case of saying, now otherwise was, we can't get married till after Easter because we had lambing, sheep lambing,
yeah,
you know.
had to be married between harvest and lambing. So
A farmer's life, eh?
that was my first experience, because I had no experience of farming whatsoever. I hadn't really been on a farm until I was married, and we had a mobile home at that time, and yeah, I don't think I was approved of very much as farmer's wife material by your dad, was I?
No,
Not
I don't
really,
think
but I
he
think...
never said anything.
Well, he didn't to you, but I have heard from other sources. But,
Because?
well, I had heard the expression "old townie," so that was me. Apparently, I was told not by Arthur, but by someone else in the family. But I think after Richard was born, he was born in '68, and he was a boy, so another son for Waddington. I think perhaps he thought perhaps I was useful for something.
Well, that's handy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you can't remember the engagement, can you remember the wedding?
Oh, I can
yeah.
remember the wedding. Yeah, it was in the George. We at Chittlehampton Church, where my parents were married before me. So we've got lovely photographs that's coming down that wonderful arch of I think they're lime trees. And yeah, afterwards we went to the George in South Molton for a reception in the upstairs room, because when we were going out together, he used to sort of take me to places which he knew, which were very often selling
George.
alcoholic drinks. We went to the George quite often. It was the Kingdons, as you know, who were the landlords at that time. So you knew them, didn't you? Because they had the shop in Chumley and things as well. So, and yeah, it was a really very, very nice reception. I think for a 3-course meal, it was 13 shillings and 9 pence each. So if you can sort of and see how much that was in new money, you can see it was almost unbelievable that you get a 3-course meal.
I think I still got the receipt in the drawer now.
Well, yeah, we've still got the album, yeah.
Well, you're waiting to see if somebody gets sick so you can go and get your money back. Different days. So I've been doing the maths, so that 13 shillings would be about 50p, would it?
10 shillings was 50 pence, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
10 shillings was 50 pence.
Okay, so
So
13.
3 shillings would be 15 pence.
Okay,
So
so
about 67 pence.
yeah, so about 67 pence, but that's unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And did you go off on honeymoon after that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went off to, of course then there were none of this about, evening do's and having lots of people. You'd leave and you'd get into your into your going away outfit, which was really special, and you'd leave the reception and everyone would wave you off, and that's what happened. We came back here, didn't we? And I brought my wedding bouquet and gave it to Gladys, which probably, I was thinking back, she probably wasn't. Oh, well, we were going to put it on your mother's grave, weren't we, at one time?
Yeah.
But anyway, and then we went off to, in the old farm van, we went off to Taunton and got the train and spent about 5 days in London, didn't we? And it was... I remember on the Sunday, the day after, we went out for a walk, and you know what Sunday's like in London now. It's just the same as any other day of the week. But there was nothing. There was very little traffic.
No
We
traffic.
couldn't find anywhere to get a meal for ages.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was closed. eventually we did find somewhere to go in and have a meal, but it was, well, it's quite interesting that we did that, and to think of the contrast, what life was like then and what it's like now.